I'm your host, Sheldon Alexander, and what a night in the NBA on Wednesday. We'll break all of that down as we'll give you some picks for all four of the Game 6 series in the second round. I mean, I went 2-2 from Monday's pod, bringing the totals to 31 and 23 against the spread in the play-in/playoffs, and 43, 27 and 1 against the spread overall in my NBA picks. But we got to start with, and normally we do this in the reverse order, but because of what happened last night, I feel like we have to start with Wednesday night's game between the Bucks and Celtics. This series has just been, this is a series, I think you actually said this early on in this series. This was a series at the Nets and Celtics. People were anticipating we were going to have the slugfest back and forth, probably looking like it's going 7, but either way, it's been absolutely incredible. Milwaukee leads the series 3-2 with another huge win. They win Game 5 on the road. Last time we spoke, I had the Bucks in Game 4 at home, and they lost blowing a late lead. In Game 5, the Celtics blow the late lead at home. Bucks win 110-107. And I mean, this sets up a crazy Game 6. Friday night in Milwaukee. We know the Deer District and company will be rocking, with the Bucks a chance to close out this series. They're favored by 1.5 points. I got to be on the Bucks. I just don't know how I can go against Giannis. I don't know. Like, I'm watching that game last night. They're going to lose. And I know we try to meld the stats and the eye test on this pod. That's what we do. I know I am the eye test guy. I'll say things like, oh, institutional win, championship DNA, like all those sports cliches you hear over and over again. But I'm watching that game last night. The Bucks are going to lose. Right? Like, Giannis is a beast. They're down, 6 with like a minute 30 left, somewhere around there. Giannis splashes in a 3 after being 2 of 17 in the series from 3 prior to that. The Bucks just made all of the winning plays down the stretch, whether it was Bobby Portis or Drew Holiday twice. And then again, might I add in that Giannis is just a beast, dropping another 40 piece. I don't know how I go against Giannis, but what say you in terms of Game 6, the Bucks being favored -1.5, and just where you're at with this series? It has just been a back and forth slugfest.
Yeah, well, first things first, that game crawls over, unfortunately, knocking off the under for the second straight time. A game just absolutely dead nut under pretty much, well, at least certainly through the first half. In the case of Game 4 through 3 quarters, 70 some odd points in the fourth quarter of that Game 4. Brutal from that standpoint. Man, I don't know about.
Bucks 6 of 6 from 3 in the fourth quarter. That probably didn't help the over. Right. I don't know. Like, from a side standpoint, like, can I get a 3-quarter line for the Bucks? Because you know what I mean. Like, this team is just driving me nuts with the fourth quarter lead blowing situation. And then, Boston goes and does essentially the same thing yesterday. And, you mentioned Giannis, obviously. How do you not? He wins by decision, right? We thought the big boxing match was on Saturday. Looks like it was last night. He gets, the Greek gets cut, but stays in the fight, so to speak. And you just go like, he's indestructible. I mean, not that we thought that he was going to go away at any point in time, but I went into that game yesterday and I'm like, maybe Boston just has 4 really good players, including inexplicably Al Horford, and maybe the Bucks just have 2, and then Bobby Portis is grabbing offensive rebounds, like getting game winners, essentially. Drew Holiday, obviously one of those 2 players right now, because Chris Middleton obviously still out. And then the Bucks win the game, and you just go like, how did we get here? In the same way that after the Game 3 and after Game 4, the Bucks won Game 3, and it's funny, like in my head they didn't, right? Because they didn't cover the 2.5 point spread, winning by 2. I keep thinking that Boston's up 3-1 in this series. Like, no, it's an even series. Just because it's against point spread doesn't count. Yeah, like how glutton for punishment are we here at a -1.5 here? Obviously, it's dropped down because Boston has shown they're more than capable of winning road games in this series. And I talked about last time,
it's like anytime we get any of these 4 teams, I think I just want to take the points. And obviously that would have worked out well, yesterday. Plus 1.5, still probably not enough for me to take Boston. But would you be, shocked in any way, shape, or form if this went 7 games? Obviously not, right? It is truly a coin flip situation here. And so this to me is like, how badly do you want to bet on this game? Like, I think I would prefer Milwaukee in the first half, because I don't really want anything to do with either of these teams in the second half. This is out of control, which is super fun from a watching standpoint. Like, you can watch these games without a bet on them. That's allowed. And it's actually probably going to go better for you. So yeah, I don't really want anything to do with betting on this game. I'll probably be back on the under. I haven't looked to see it, but I presume it's probably still 213. Quick note on the shot quality yesterday. The shot quality favored the Boston Celtics 104-97. So shot quality was all over the under from that standpoint, right? It's 201, but doing some quick mathematics there. And of course, it ends up getting to 217 because both teams were making shots to sort of an unusual degree. So, yeah, like if I had to bet a side, I don't want anything to do with Milwaukee fourth quarters. 211.5, by the way, is the total. I just can't, you know me, right? I go, okay, like just because a coach or a team like won a championship because of certain things happening, whether it's Kevin Durant missing a shot or Chris Paul getting banged up in the finals, like doesn't mean that they're still not capable of absolutely screwing up a fourth quarter, which is sort of, something of what the Bucks were known for before they won a title, right? And that gets all washed away. And so if betting on the Bucks here in the full game is betting on them not to choke away the fourth quarter, but of course they don't choke away the fourth quarter. They make the comeback in game 5. So, I mean, there's certain situations where you just sort of throw your hands up in the air, you shrug your shoulders and you go, I don't know. But yeah, I think Milwaukee in the first half is probably the best play. Then maybe you can grab something live. One team or the other going to be down in the fourth quarter, probably come back based on what we've seen in this series so far. This series is entertaining as hell, but man, just a mess when you're trying to bet it.
I just can't bet against Giannis. I mean, Giannis in this matchup where you're talking, it's a short number again, minus 1.5, and he puts up another 40 spot. And the way that he plays, I didn't even think it was possible to watch Giannis and think, did he get better? Because like, it's not even like he always had the energy. The energy was always there, but the Celtics have the wall built to try to stop him. They have the big guy in Al Horford to try to stop him. Grant Williams comes off the bench and does a pretty solid job trying to stop him. And yet somehow he's getting to the basket and making like all these tough layups from like all these weird angles. And he did not have that in his game last year. It's such a weird thing to see, but no matter what he's putting up, Shaq sits there and says every night, big guys, you got to be able to put up 28 and 15, and 28 and 15's got to be the bar minimum in the playoffs. And in the regular season, he's saying, right. And then you up that come playoff time. Now 15 rebounds in the regular season is very difficult to do, but with Shaq, he's exaggerating. The point remains.
Yeah, not for Shaq.
Right. But like you put up big beast mode numbers come playoff time. And Giannis, I mean, anything's possible after watching that 50-point triple-double last year in the finals. Yeah. And they're going to be at home in front of their home fans. There's going to be a little extra juice. I'm always wondering, thinking, doesn't my guy get tired? Right. And one thing that's interesting about this series, and you mentioned Coach Bud and watching the Bucks just, I don't know how they get by, to be honest, but to me, it looks like you're just so much more free after winning the championship. The nerves down the stretch. It's like, yeah, Giannis is like, whatever, I'll shoot this 3. No problem. Drew Holiday, the 3 that Drew Holiday hit to tie the game, that was ill-advised. Like my guy barely touched the ball before it was already coming back out of his hands to shoot it. And he misses all these shots during the game. And then crunch time, he's like, Kobe. Right? It's like, where did that come from?
Isn't that kind of the point? Right? Isn't that kind of the point? Because like Giannis misses that shot a lot of the time. Drew Holiday misses that shot a lot of the time. And when the shot doesn't go, we're talking about how they choked away the fourth quarter, right? But it just happens to go in this instance.
And even with those plays though, even with those plays, it still took like Bobby Portis offensive rebound, like the championship DNA winning plays. Bobby Portis, offensive rebound, put back. Drew Holiday, that defensive play on Marcus Smart. And I know if you watch the Hot Take TV today, it's going to be a lot of, is that the best defensive play of all time? Blah, blah, blah. Right. Like they're going to go to that narrative.
Sure.
But what a play, like to help off of your guy, come over, right? Exactly. It's like, normally you guys are taking it a little too far, but in this instance, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Like my guy helps off his guy, a clean block, doesn't foul. One thing I found weird talking about clutch plays, Marcus Smart in the postgame said JT, Jason Tatum, I'm assuming, is supposed to get the ball, but nobody moved on their inbounds play. And I'm thinking, wait, what? Because remember how that played out. Giannis was bleeding. Yeah. So the ref makes him go and get that
full on cut man situation.
So you have a full timeout, a free timeout if you're the Celtics to draw up a play. And they come out of the timeout and you're telling me Marcus Smart after the game, which, I mean, I don't know why you're throwing your guys under the bus, but Marcus Smart, nobody moved. So he just ran and got the ball. Insane play by Drew Holiday. The block, the catch, throw it off Marcus Smart out of bounds, and then the steal at the very end. It's just, I mean, those are just winning plays. And it's a reminder, I'm going to get in my basketball bag here, but it's a reminder that basketball is a game that is played at both ends of the floor. Because those Drew Holiday plays, the steal and the block, those are like two big time buckets in crunch time, but we just don't view it in that way because we're so used to looking at, oh, well, who hit the big shot or who missed the big shot. I have a question for you.
Well, I was just going to say, it's the difference between also from a betting standpoint, right? Like laying points or taking the points, right? Because I'm sitting here especially when it's, -2, -3, -1.5, -1, a little bit different, but I'm sitting here going like, those plays are great. And you mentioned like the championship element, like that's the difference between winning and losing and sort of overcoming for example, a shot quality deficit. I'm trying to get these Bucks here to stretch out a lead in the fourth quarter at home. You know what I mean? Like, where is that energy?
Yep.
That's what I need from a betting standpoint. And so that's there's a different element there where it's like, maybe they are more comfortable playing in these really tight games. Or maybe they just got, I don't want to use the term lucky, but like kind of lucky when they're making those shots, right? In order to sort of be able to stay in it or sort of get back in it to make those plays down the stretch, right? And so I can't shake the fact that like at -1.5, like it feels like we should be betting on the Bucks here. Only like that's the way it felt the previous two games in Milwaukee as well. And like if it were that easy, you know what I mean? Like the line would be higher. The line would be -3 the way it was like when it opened back in game 3. So it just scares me.
Because was it game 3 that was Bucks by 3.5, they won by 2, right?
Yeah.
So to your point though of playing in close games, I mentioned in last night's game down the stretch, well, in the fourth quarter anyways, the Bucks were 7-1 in terms of offensive rebounds.
Okay.
Remember Time Lord not playing. That is a big factor. And 6 of 6 from 3. The Celtics didn't even hit a 3 in the fourth quarter at all. That's insane. Yeah. But I want to ask you if this matters to you at all. Okay. So the Bucks are 6-2 this season in games decided by 3 points or less. They have the second best record in the NBA behind only the Phoenix Suns. The Celtics, meanwhile, are 4-11 in games decided by 3 points or less this season. But two of those wins have actually come in the playoffs. So does that mean anything to you at all? Do you take anything from that? Because to me, I look at the Celtics and the way that they play, and I'm like, okay, well, they still don't really know in a close game. It's like, okay, well, we're giving it to Tatum, but is Tatum Kobe mode?
That's right.
Ready yet? You know, like, is that like there. Full on there?
Yeah. I mean, look at it. When it's a close game, what do you need, right? You need either one of two things or both things, right? You need to know for sure who you're going to get a bucket. And Marcus Smart, as much as he got a wide open layup, that's the other element, right? This wasn't a tough fadeaway shot, whatever. This is a guy going to the basket who is going to make that shot if Drew Holiday doesn't come over to help. Now, what else was Drew Holiday going to do, right? Like he didn't have to be involved in that play. Nobody else was going to be dangerous necessarily in that situation. But Yeah, like the idea that it's that the ball doesn't get to Tatum or you know, or I don't want to say literally anyone else other than Marcus Smart, but like that's just not what Marcus Smart does. Versus the Bucks defensively, like they have their two guys, right? You don't want anything to do with Giannis if you're trying to get a bucket. You don't want anything to do with Drew Holiday if you're trying to get a bucket, which is also kind of maybe why Marcus Smart got the ball, because he was one of three guys that were not being covered by Giannis or Drew Holiday.
Yeah.
And then offensively, like who's your guy offensively, right? Now, obviously we don't think of Giannis necessarily as that is the Kevin Durant, like going to get you a bucket guy, but he is at least still a focal point guy on offense one way or another, right? So they know what they're doing. So when it comes down to games getting close like that, yeah, like they are going to win a little bit more than they're going to lose. Now, you know, you mentioned obviously the Bucks and the Suns, like two really good teams, like literally the defending champions, like they are also going to just know what they're going to do because they are going to be the better team in basically every game that they play that ends up being a close game, right? So there is some sort of signal noise sort of combination going on there. I would have expected Boston's record to be a little bit better than that, but I can understand why it is, because Boston beats you defensively over the course of the long term, right? Like they grind you down over a period, right? Like it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to stop a, you know, last second shot or something along those lines, right? So it's a, you know, a little bit different in how they play sort of long term versus short term. Honestly, sample size being what it is probably doesn't mean all that much, but it would be a little bit disconcerting if you are the Celtics, because they have lost 2 games that were decided by less than 3 points, right? In these 2 of these last 3 games. So again, maybe that's, you know, supposed to give us an advantage if we're backing Milwaukee -1.5. I would say shop for a -1, a pretty cheap -1 at that, right? Something in the, you know, -1, -115, like is maybe even -120, just to save, you know, the idea, okay, like if Milwaukee wins this by 1 point, I don't lose. Like that's that's the last thing you want in this circumstance.
Yeah. And I mean, again, overall, just setting up an epic Friday night game. That crowd is going to be rocking. And yes, it appears at least you're leaning Bucks. I'm on the Bucks -1.5 closeout game. Let's see how that one plays out for sure.